This is it is not going to be the last conference that we are going to have with him. Now that he is here in Diyarbakır, not far from here, we want to host His Excellency here in our university in other various aspects at the same time. In order to keep time, I am going to stop now, and the floor will be his. And take your notes, then you can...
Dışişleri Bakanlığı Diyarbakır Temsilcisi, Büyükelçi Sayın Hakan ÇAKIL'i kürsüye arz ederim.
Distinguished His Excellency, distinguished Dean of the Batman University, Professor İdris Demir, distinguished scholars, distinguished students, fellow students, sevgili arkadaşlarım, ladies and gentlemen, I'm very honored to be here with you, and I'm very honored to be invited by His Excellency, Dean of the University, Professor İdris Demir. He is our colleague also. I consider him as my colleague. He's a graduate of the International Relations department, that we are also a graduate from the same university with him. So we are colleagues. I consider him as my Ministry of Foreign Affairs for 34 years. I completed my 33 years, so this is my 34 years in the service. Generally, I concentrated in Middle Eastern and Cyprus affairs at the ministry, in and out, headquarters and abroad. But of course, we are always dealing with the European Union in different aspects while we are dealing with the Middle Eastern issues and the Cyprus issue. European Union, as you may know, is one of the leading international organization of the current global system. Today I will discuss with you about the future of the European Union. But before getting into the discussion about the future of the European Union, we have to remind under which circumstances the European Union emerged and how they achieved so far. And then we briefly remember that after the end of the First World War, a regional order established by the winning countries produced the Second World War. I mean, a disgraceful peace agreement for the Germany of that time, which was forced to sign by United Kingdom and France. It was a kind of it was a great humiliation for the Germany of that time, and the Germans never accepted the Versailles Treaty, which ended the First World War. And you know, afterwards, after the First World War, the Germany started to have some economic and social problems, and the Nazis became to power, and they took the government. And then you are all aware that what happened after the Nazis took the administration in Germany, and we lived with a peace treaty with the losing parties. On the other hand, they want to include the losing countries like Germany or Italy to be in the regional system. So this is the main idea of the emerging of the EU countries now are using the currency of euro. You are all aware. And euro became the second important currency in international trade after US dollars. So they are important achievements for the European Union. But at the end of the day, they are all economic achievements. And they are successful on that. Until 1990s, actually we can say that the European Union has written a success story, because they established a single market, started to face some challenges. First of all, end of the Cold War, the fall of the Berlin Wall, And after the fall of the Berlin Wall, some challenges started for the European Union, because until that time, generally they were working on the basis of the economic ideas, try to, when it comes to Greece, most of their areas were very much underdeveloped compared with the EU. So in order to prevent migrations from these regions to the more industrial regions, they decided to abandon the economic inequalities, differences among regions. And mostly they didn't. So, in short, to make a long story, economic-wise, European Union, we can say that it's a success story, they have single market, single currency, this all. But international, such a question for the European Union. What we will do with the new countries who were freed from the communist administration, like Czechoslovakia of that time, you know, they divided in two countries now, Czechoslovakia and Slovakia, and Hungary and Poland, Romania, Bulgaria. They they sent lots of their people abroad as a migrant, as a foreign workers. So, from the middle of the 90s, from 94, 95, until 2004, European Union worked on these countries, Central and Eastern European countries, and prepared them for the EU membership. Most of the time, by in quotation, force, but when I tell you they prepared them by force, I am not meaning a military force, but these countries, especially Romania, Hungary, a little bit Poland, maybe Hungary, they have very old habits from the communist administration, so they have to abandon them, they have to change them. Especially in countries, they admitted as a full member to the European Union. But theoretically, they were full members in 2004. It takes 10 more years for these countries to exercise their rights as a full member. What I mean this. The European Union doesn't want to receive migration from any country. Most of the countries, like France, Germany. And when Hungary, Poland, Czech Republic, Slovakia, and Hungary, when they became a full member, of course, most of the citizens of these countries, they want to migrate to United Kingdom. At that time, they were the member of the European Union. United Kingdom, to Germany, to France, to Italy for work. Because according to EU rules, an EU citizen, when he or she moves to another EU country, is exempted from all legislation applied for the foreigners. In 2004, 2006, first, early 2000, there was a debt crisis in Europe. For instance, I was counselor at the embassy in The Hague, in the Netherlands, when the European debt crisis appeared. It was a very huge challenge for the economic system of the European Union. Some big government-owned EU banks, some of them are also Dutch banks, they bankrupt. But this bankruptcy, this is my modest view, it is the first and still continuing challenge for the EU, facing with the challenges at the international order. Because sometimes we have lots of sociological problems and some other economic problems. And it was the first and very major challenge EU has to address. Secondly, then after the COVID pandemic. The COVID pandemic also economically damaged most of the economies of the European Union. Before the pandemic, as you are all aware, their production chain of most EU countries were in Far East, China, Taiwan, or the other countries. But once the pandemic first emerged, and then the production chain damaged, they had difficulty to import goods, raw materials, difficulty to bring the main raw materials or the items from Eastern Asia countries. And also, this means that the supply of the goods to the market started to diminish, including Austria, but then they quit from Austria, and they have invaded half of the Germany. And this act of the Soviet administration of that time, but you can read it as Russians, created a very strong fear within the EU governments. If Russians will come again, what we will do? Because Russian Federation is a very huge country, militarily they are very strong, in terms of human power they are very strong. So, these fears also revitalized after the Russian-Ukrainian war. And that's why the European countries and the European Union, they are supporting Ukraine fiercely because they want to keep the Soviet Union at this border. Because what is in their field, deep inside, if the Russians will invade Ukraine, they will invade then Moldova and then who's next? This is their very deep fear and very important challenge for the EU. Until Russia-Ukraine war, EU was a mostly economic thinking, economically, financially oriented international body. But they have to deal with the issue because this has nothing to do with the economy. It has economic results, but nevertheless, there is a political problem. There is an expansionism, there is an invasion, and they fear that they may be the next. If you ask my personal opinion, so far the European Union countries, they are dealing with this issue with a very low profile. The main reason is their difficulty to get a decision. Of course, they are implementing lots of sanctions, lots of restrictions for the Russian Federation, but they are not practically producing positive results. Has a different views with regard to Russian war. Bulgaria, Romania, at a certain extent. Poland, they are categorically against the Russians, but they have some fears. They do not want to provocate the Russians. So the European Union hasn't adopted a central or pivotal role within the Russia-Ukraine war. This is a fact. But the result is how they deal with their energy problems with Russia. Actually, before the Russian-Ukraine war, there was a second pipeline which will start from the north of Russia, will come through the Baltic Sea, and from the Baltic Sea, it's supposed to distribute natural gas to most of the northern European countries. Now, the construction of this pipeline is stopped. It's a very difficult challenge for the EU because they are heavily depending on the large amount of supplies from Russian Federation. If the war hadn't happened, the construction of this pipeline should have completed so far, but it is stopped now. Of course, with the pressure of the other powers, other global powers, the European Union also declared that they will not buy too much natural gas from Russia because the natural gas is one of the main exporting items of the Russian Federation. They have 3 exporting items: oil, natural gas, and weapons, the Russians. So this is another challenge still European Union starting to deal with. So, what will happen in the future of the European Union? So far, I try to summarize you what kind of challenges EU has facing. Economic-wise, they are overcoming some of their challenges, but political-wise, it is very difficult for them to take realistic steps. So, what may happen in the future? firstly and foremostly depending on the EU in order to be a global actor or a medium size of economic power, second economic power of the world. You may be a second economic power of the world after the United States, but if you don't have a military power, you will not become an actor in international relations. So, now we came to an important point. What EU thinks about its future? My personal view, is very personal view of me, they haven't decided yet what to do next. 27 not like-minded countries, it is very difficult to work as one. So most probably in the future they will keep a low profile in regional problems which are far away from them. French president some time ago and most of the European Union countries, they do not want to cut their welfare spending, so they do not want to allocate money for their defense. So, to establish a European army, or some people say that to establish a rapid European reaction force, it seems not very realistic at the time being. So, if a bloc of countries, if an international organization, or if a bloc has a military power, they may not have a very big stake in the international system. It seems that they will refrain to be a part of the international conflicts, especially these conflicts which are very far from European Union. But in Europe-wise, they are more active in order to freeze the conflicts. For instance, when we look to the Balkans region has a potential to have lots of conflicts among Serbs, Croats, Bosnians, between Croats and Macedonians, between Serbs and Albanians. But the European Union does not want another civil war in the Balkans, in Europe, after the Bosnian War. So they are very much active to involve disagreement among the Serbs, Albanians, Croats, and Bosnians, at least to freeze them. So we can say that they are very active to preserve their comfort zone and to freeze the conflicts, even if they will not fix it, because it is very difficult for these regional problems to fix, but they want to freeze them. But when it comes to Russia-Ukraine war, they keep themselves in a distance. They support too much Ukraine. They are implementing some sanctions to Russian Federation, but they refrain to confront Russian Federation. I think they will also continue to refrain for this. So another future challenge of the European Union is immigration. Still the world, including our country, we have a serious problem of migration from different countries. Also EU has this, and we have a readmission agreement with EU to prevent this problem. But EU hasn't made a policy yet with regard to manage this migration problem, because some countries, some aging countries, some countries which are population are very old, they want to receive some migration from different countries, but some of them they are not in favor of that. So the problem brought us to the same point again, the issue of taking decision with unanimity. So the main challenge for me for the future of EU is not Russian-Ukrainian war, or is not a potential conflict zone in the Balkans. The main problem is taking decision. In other words, not to take decision in the EU. cannot have a decision. They have to change this unanimity issue because 27 countries, it's very difficult. Even if we are 27 people among this class, let's say that I choose 26 of you, including myself, we are 27, a group of, let's say, a person, a group of people, it will be very difficult for us to reach a consensus on different issues. So the future, the main the challenge for the EU is this. The governing system of EU, what they will do. France, Italy, Germany, they are pressing very hard to convince the small countries to change the structure of the EU. But the small countries, they are fiercely against this. Most probably, the best thing EU can do so far is also they will freeze this issue. Because the European diplomacy works in that way, my dear friends. If they are unable to solve an issue, they prefer to freeze it. They prefer to freeze it. And they find some back channels. Most probably in the coming days, according to me, Germany, France, Italy, Denmark, these countries, or Spain, they will not manage to change the governing system of the EU, so they will freeze this issue. They will not bring the governing body major problems. They will use their private back channels with the third countries. So individualization of the EU is a concept which we will see in the coming future. This is my personal view, my friends. I think that in the future we will see more individualized European Union. Let's say Germany will be maybe more active in terms of bilateral relations with Turkey, because they will not have unanimity within the Union. Let's say France will be more active individually within African countries. This means weakening of the EU. Maybe you can consider me a little bit skeptical about the EU, but I read the development in that way, because there is always disharmony within the EU. Maybe they regret to expand the body such big numbers. So this is what I see for the future of the EU. Weakening, more conservative, more individualized, and bringing their production chain to the old continent, of Europe. Because distinguished students, they have observed one thing. Populist parties are on the rise in most of the European Union countries. You know why?